In case some people that have been living in a cave have not heard about this, can you give us a rundown of what exactly is the Halo Championship Series?
The Halo Championship Series is our desire to create a governing body for Halo esports and also create a series of ongoing online and LAN events. It's the best competition, it's the best experience for players, fans, enthusiasts, and we're excited to kick things off actually this month.
With Halo Infinite's release, the HCS felt kind of like a reboot in a way. Put yourself back in that moment. How are you feeling going into the start of HCS Season 1?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty nerve-wracking. We had tournaments literally like 3 days after the game launched. Yeah, you've got hundreds, if you include like external partners, like almost 1,000 people like working on this game. The team is pretty special, you know, buckled down and got the job done, and it's just everyone's busting their butts to try to make it work. You know, at some point we gotta ship the game. We can't just be in the development forever. Obviously, we couldn't follow it up with as much content and things that we needed post-launch, but I don't think there's been another game before or since that has launched with like all of the esports features and the program like day one the way that we did. For at launch and like what shipped, especially competitively speaking, Halo Infinite's like a damn good game, you know?
Oh my god, Faze will close it out!
Hello, and welcome back to the Tide the Leader podcast. My name's Eli the Ninja. Joined with me in every episode is my duo, Makowski. Our guest today has to be the most mentioned Halo personality across social media, someone who isn't afraid to step into the crosshairs for the betterment of Halo. Perhaps the only thing more recognizable than typically his backwards cap is his passion for the game. Today, he's no cap to be found, but welcome to the podcast, Tashi. How you doing today?
Doing great. Thank you guys for having me.
Always appreciate you all the time. We've had the pleasure to actually spend a lot of time together at most of these events, after parties, even just randomly throughout the venue, and always appreciate your time. So I'm already excited for this one. We're going to treat you just like we treat every one of our other guests. We typically go through a trip down memory lane about your origin story. So tell us about some of your earliest memories in gaming, and what games were you playing?
In gaming, okay. Honestly, my first memory in gaming has got to be at my grandfather's house in New York. My uncle lived in like the basement, and he had like an original Nintendo. And I remember going down there and playing like Mario or like Track and Field, Jaws, Zelda, things like that. So that's my first memory in gaming with a Nintendo. And then back at home, we had a Super Nintendo later. This is like the early 90s now. And I remember just playing the hell out of a Super Nintendo. Super Mario Brothers, Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, yes. Final Fight, Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past, which is like one of my favorite games ever. So those are my earliest gaming memories, just Nintendo and Super Nintendo back in the day.
Man, you just threw me back. That Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time. Oh man.
Great game.
There was like two kids from my neighborhood that would literally come over to my house like multiple times a week and just play that with me and my brother.
Yeah.
Like the four of us would just play through as far through the campaign and like beat it all the time. I don't know, man. Good memories. That's such a good game.
I just got the record.
Got the record?
They released a limited edition record of the soundtrack.
Oh,
and
wow.
It popped up. I swear to God, it popped up on my Twitter feed.
You a vinyl fan?
I just got a record player like a month or two ago. So I've just been like just buying up records and enjoying that as like a little hobby. And I saw that pop in my Twitter feed. I was just like, man, I gotta have this. They only made like 400 apparently.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it's pretty awesome. Now it's like one of my most prized possessions.
There's just something warm and soothing about vinyl. Like there really is like a different, not even sound, but like almost like an aura to music played off of the record player. So I've been thinking about getting one myself. Maybe this is my call to action to finally get it done.
It's cool. And going record shopping is like fun too, because you don't know what you're going to find. And, you know, if you spend enough time in like the used bin section, then you never know what you'll stumble on.
So your early gamer origin story revolved around a lot of Super Nintendo, like I think a lot of us, Eli and myself at least. But when did you start getting into Halo, and what type of shooters were the foundation for FPS and your memories with that?
FPS, I remember playing a bit of Counter-Strike on PC and Unreal Tournament. Those were like the two shooters that I'd always played. Weirdly enough, I remember getting Unreal Tournament as well for the PS2. And it
was on Xbox. It was on the original Xbox. I remember playing that game on Xbox, and it was so fast. I don't know how I had any like form of control, because on joysticks, that game was way too quick. But it was still so much fun.
It was a really fun game. I used to just play against bots, I think, on PS2, because I didn't have network connection back then. But those were like the kind of main shooters that I had played. And then I didn't get an Xbox and Halo until 2003. And this was like there was like a limited edition bundle. It came with like the Star Wars game, and then it came with Halo.
Knights of the Old Republic?
No, it wasn't Knights of the Old Republic, which I love that game. That game is so good.
Favorite single player game ever.
Yeah, really damn good. I don't remember what that Star Wars was. Maybe something Republic. I can't remember. Anyway, I just played Halo, as you can tell, from that bundle.
Nice.
And, you know, I really just like got super addicted, played with my friends at like one of their houses. We just played 4-player split screen. We just played like prisoner FFAs like all day. And I started to like get to be better than them. And then a year later, Halo 2 came out, went to the midnight launch, got Xbox Live. And then from there was just like, I mean, super addicted. Like we would just like get off the bus at school or from school and just jump online and play all day and night. And summers when there wasn't school, I just like played Halo all the time. So yeah, from there I got super addicted, and I knew from a pretty early age, I think I was like 16 or 17, I was like, oh, I want to work on Halo. Like that's what I want to go do.
Dude, not many people get to not only live out a dream, but take on a dream job. So I assume for you, when you joined the HCS and forming on this next era and history and legacy of competitive Halo, like, did you cry? Like, I'm an emotional guy. I get a little teary. I get happy teary sometimes. Like, what was that like for you?
No, I didn't cry. I joined before HCS was a thing. I was living in New York, and I was doing like a job building and repairing like swimming pools. And I was just using it to like make ends meet. You know, I'd still wanted to go work on Halo. So I just like done my best to network as much as I can, go to E3, go to PAX, go to different like community events, whatever it was. I just wanted to like meet and network different people. At the time it was like Bungie and then 343. My interview was January 2014. So we're just about 11 years from when I was first starting. You know, I joined the community team. My role was community coordinator, which basically meant I did some like writing. You know, I did like interviews with different people in the community, and I did a lot of community support. So people had issues with like the website or with like Halo 4 or like Spartan Assault. They would leave, you know, like issue posts on the Waypoint forums, and I would work with the developers to like troubleshoot. And shortly after I joined, you know, there was an appetite internally to, with MCC coming out, kind of rekindle that old school competitive Halo flame. And that's when HCS started forming. And there were, you know, at the time we were just the community team, but it was pretty much like a side job for everybody. Yeah, we all just like helped build HCS while also doing our normal like community day jobs. And so that's how it kind of came to be. And yeah, HCS just celebrated 10 years in November.
Congrats, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah. Feels weird saying thank you. I feel like it's kind of everyone's brand, you know what I mean?
Competition and Halo go hand in hand. It's a huge part of the legacy that Halo has always had. Looking forward, we've got big plans to grow Halo esports, and much of that planning has involved 343's community manager and former Halo Pro player, Bravo. So I caught up with him to talk about our Halo Championship Series announcement. I feel like the past 2 weeks I've hardly seen you at your desk. I always see like you and Tashi huddled away in a room. You're in constant meetings. You guys have been over there scheming and planning a bunch of things. And we hear the rumors. We know there's like a big esports program that you guys have been working on, and we're finally there. We finally made the announcements. So now that I finally have you, what is HCS?
I like to use the word scheming. It's a good way to put it. I like to think of us as scheming in our rooms each day. But yeah, we've been working on, like you said, the HCS, the Halo Championship Series, which is the first official Halo Global Esports League. And we're going to be revealing a lot more in the coming weeks. But essentially, it's just our desire to create the best platform possible for competitive Halo.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about, I guess, some of the early days then. So it was all like a side thing. You guys were obviously just doing it from the passion of like trying to rekindle the spirit of MLG, I guess, because I know you and I have talked a lot that you used to be huge into MLG and watch all the tournaments and montages and everything. So what was who was on that team? Is it a lot of the same people we see today? Was it a very different team? And what was the thought process then?
The only still remaining member is my boss, Elizabeth. She's the COO for the franchise now in the studio, but everyone else is moved on to different things. So Bravo was on the team. It's probably the most recognizable. But we had a lot of amazing people helping at that time. We had this guy Chase, who made the HCS logo. We had Che, who was all of our boss. He was kind of the one spearheading this. Then you had guy Adam, you had Kyle, Eugenia, who was like our event producer. She's amazing. So everyone just kind of like chipped in to support. And then we did, back then it was like a 3-way partnership with ESL and Twitch.
343 Industries has announced the Halo Championship Series, an official esports league for competitive Halo players. The league, which will initially focus on Halo 2 Anniversary, is the joint effort of 343 Industries, Twitch, and ESL. Che Chow, franchise media director at 343 Industries, had this to say in the announcement. Quote, Halo was one of the first console esports titles to rise to popularity a decade ago. With the HCS, we're harnessing that passion and investing back into the community that's still vibrant today.
That's how kind of HCS first formed. So good people on all those sides too. Ernie, Golden Boy was there from the beginning. Then on the ESL side, you had people like Craig. So there's a lot of people putting this whole thing together.
What was the initial vision for HCS? Like, take a if-then scenario. Like, if we do this, then the HCS will have been a success. What was that phrasing, if you will, when you guys first formed 10 years ago?
Yeah, I think it was originally really like a community building endeavor. There was a lot of hype and attention around Halo during the old school MLG days, and there was this really strong community that formed. And I think everyone internally were just kind of big fans of competitive Halo. And this is the team that, before I joined, had just finished doing the Halo 4 Global Championship. Yeah. So I think everyone kind of like wet their beak with that.
Yep.
And then as MCC came to be, it just became like a really kind of obvious thing to try to go after. It's like, hey, we're not only remaking Halo 2, but all of these like original Halo titles that had such a huge competitive history are coming, with online play and HD and all of this stuff. So it just felt like the right thing to do. And in a world where games were moving away from just being a boxed product where you ship it and they're done. We were, I think, probably having early aspirations of like almost like a live service, like growing this community and supporting this community. And you got to remember also Halo 5 at the time was in development, and that had a really strong competitive stance,
Yeah.
If you look at Halo 5 compared to Halo 4, you're talking about, equal and same starts, focus on 4v4. The pro team had been hired and they were working on balancing the game and making the game. There were a lot of like bigger competitive ambitions for that game. And so it just made sense for, hey, let's start with MCC and kind of have it dovetail into Halo 5 when that game came out. And that's what we did. And I think it was largely successful.
Yeah, honestly, it was a great success, I would say. And then Halo Infinite starts development at some point along the way during Halo 5, I assume. And it felt like with Halo Infinite's release, the HCS felt kind of like a reboot in a way. After a short hiatus, competitive Halo returns with the battle rifle now in place of the H5 Magnum. Kind of like rekindling some of those old, I guess, nostalgic feels of the older Halo games like Halo 2 and 3. Put yourself back in that moment. How are you feeling going into the start of HCS Season 1?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty nerve-wracking because we had just come off of delaying Halo Infinite, and it basically mean we had to like keep the community engaged even longer. Because remember, at the end of 2018 was like the last major Halo 5 tournament, and then we did like the grassroots kind of era.
The throwback, yeah.
Yeah, we did Halo 5 stuff, we did Halo 3 things, and like that was cool, but it lasted like a really long time, longer than we were anticipating. So we were just like, we got to finish this game and get it out the door.
Yeah.
And if you remember, like we were during the pandemic, so everyone was like working from home. It was just like a crazy time. And I know our team was just, hyper focused on making sure that, the game competitively was ready to go, because we knew we were going to want to start HCS competition immediately after launch. It was just kind of like trying to line up all the stars, we had all these ambitions of what we wanted the program to be, the partner teams and how that was going to work, and starting tournaments basically the first weekend, all this work to line up everything for launch, basically like lay all cards on the table. It was still, looking back, I think the thing that I would consider, at least for like our team, the biggest accomplishment that we had, making sure competitive Infinite was in a really good place. And kudos to everyone involved, obviously. And then on the program side, lining up all those partner teams, having the skins ready to go day one in the store. We had tournaments literally like 3 days after the game launched around the world. We had simultaneous broadcasts. We had tournament operator partners working together who like never worked together before and like hated each other, but they like united under Halo.
That's what it does, though.
Yeah. We like convinced everyone to like work on Halo together and kind of share ideas and all this stuff. And then, a month later we had the Raleigh event. Like it was just so insane. Just like that we like pulled it off, and I talk about this eternally too, but I don't think there's been another game before or since that has launched with like all of the esports features and the program like day one the way we did. We had just everything ready to go, and it was just such a monumental task to just like nail that.
Confidence from Spartan to take the 1v1 without popping the Penguin. You have to give the man credit. Stellar Penguin do not know. Losing!
Here comes the bark of the shotgun, Renegade. He picks up this one as well. Look at that double kill.
1 second, 1 point here to win the game.
And obviously there were some rough parts, but I think we really turned heads.
I feel like a lot of people don't realize that there's so many different moving parts when it comes to these things. Like there's your team who's making everything around the game as far as the competitive part of things. But then there's the people that work on the game itself and the dev team and like the actual issues with the game itself. When you're in your line of work, you can't really prepare for any of the game itself's problems, and you don't really have that big of an impact on it. I can imagine that it was a little bit frustrating and, like you said, nerve-wracking when maybe you recognize, okay, the game's not really in the perfect state. Like it's manageable, but you'd like it to be in a better state before you launch all this other stuff that you've been working so hard on the side. Can you talk a little bit about some of the pressures that come from that? Because obviously you guys have a budget, you're working under Microsoft. Is there a set date that you're kind of told that you have to have this game out the door? Like, what's going on behind the scenes in those kind of situations?
I wasn't in the room when the dates are finalized and whatnot. I'm part of the broader team that everything kind of gets shared to, but they picked the dates, management, and at some point we gotta ship the game. We can't just be in the development forever, but obviously you have to make sure it's a quality game, which I think Infinite at launch absolutely was. Yeah, you got hundreds, if you include external partners, almost 1,000 people working on this game. It's just everyone's busting their butts to try to make it work, especially during the pandemic, working from home and all those disruptions and things like that. It's extremely difficult. So, that the team is pretty special, buckled down and got the job done and, delivered a great game. Obviously, we couldn't follow it up with as much content and things that we needed post-launch, but we're at launch and what shipped, especially competitively speaking, Halo Infinite's a damn good game,
Yeah, I think it's the best part of the game, easily, right? I think most people's opinion would agree with that. I try to see it from a more understanding perspective that there's so many other factors at play. This is a huge investment for Microsoft, so they have a deadline for when it needs to get out the door for money to start coming in. And it's sometimes with how complex games are, it's really hard to meet every single deadline to have the game perfect and fully fleshed out. The dev team eventually got everything out, but do you feel like if the dev team had a little bit more time to cook the game and make sure it's fully prepared, maybe we'd still have a lot more players playing? Because I don't know, I feel like a lot of people were frustrated in those first months and then stopped playing.
It's hard to say because there's a cutting room floor for every single game. Take whatever game of the year, talk to the developers. They're like, oh, we had this in the works and we had to cut. We had that in the works and we had to cut. And if every game developer had more time, they could have added more things. So that's true for everybody. I think for us, the main issue was just not being ready to follow up with post-launch content. People wanted more maps, they wanted weapons, they wanted equipment, they wanted more playlists and modes and all of these things. And we obviously just weren't ready to deliver on that. The team had been just focused on making sure we could hit launch. So, and obviously it's not like the game launched and then we're okay, what do we want to go build? There's a lot of things that were kind of in development that then got finished later. Forge was obviously already in development. You can't just build the crazy amazing Forge mode that it is overnight. So
yeah,
there was a team dedicated to working on that, and those later features just need time to cook.
Going back to the launch of Halo Infinite and having that robust esports program already built out and fleshed out from the very start, talk us through the decision to stray away from franchising, which was this hot buzzword. Other titles and studios had gone that route, but you guys stuck with the open platform while partnering teams, not franchising teams, but partnering teams instead. Talk us through the thought process with that and why you guys made that decision to stick with open format for Halo as opposed to franchising.
Back in 2018, we had started to just meet with different potential partners, teams, tournament operators, things like that, just to really get an understanding of where they saw esports today, where they saw it going in the future, what would need to be true about Halo for them to join, where their business was going, things like that. And we just got a brain dump from all of these different people in the ecosystem. We would go to E3 or different esports events or just jump on the phone and just talk to everybody. A lot of the teams at that time, they had just gone into Overwatch League and, that was the hot ticket at the time. They were all telling us hey, if you guys are not franchised, we're not interested.
Wow.
So we just kept talking to more people and listening to people. And For us, we were also at the same time not only taking all that feedback and making decisions, but just looking at like where Halo was and where we wanted to be. And, for those leagues at the time, they had like hundreds of people working on them internally, just on the leagues. You were talking tens of millions of dollars of like buy-in. And, we had just like had Halo 5. And like Halo 5 was a successful game. But in our heads, we were like, we're not ready to just go from like 0 to 60 with a league structure and business format like this. Like, we wanted to take a more kind of wait and see approach. And there were just teams out there who were just like not interested in that. And we were like, okay, like that's fine. As we're developing the program, some of those teams that told us, franchise or bust were starting to like change their minds. I think because they had realized just how expensive it was and the return just wasn't there.
Yep.
We wanted to partner with teams. You remember Halo 5 had team skins. It was one of the first games to have it. And so we knew we wanted to kind of build on that, but we didn't want any of the like formats of the franchise leagues. It's like we wanted all the the best parts, which is just like a strong business partnership, skins, things like that. But we didn't want all the worst parts, which we felt like was just a closed ecosystem, closed competitive format. And that just wasn't true to Halo's roots. And so we were just like, well, what if we take all the good and leave all the bad and do what kind of makes sense for Halo? And that's what we did. So we just basically came up with a format where, you had these partner teams, but they had no competitive advantage. Not all teams wanted that. And that was fine because plenty did. And we're very thankful for those initial set of teams. They all took a big risk because you got to remember at this time, there hadn't been a Halo game that had been released for a number of years.
5 years, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking like 2019, 2020, 2021 when we're doing all these deals. So you're talking 3, 4, 5 years. We hadn't done like a public beta at this point. So, these teams took a risk. And there were teams that were not willing to take the risk. And we had to say, okay. Yeah, so that was the idea. It's like, how do we have a kind of good forward-thinking business partnership with these teams while kind of remaining and retaining that original format where you show up to an event and anybody could win. And if you have no points, that doesn't make it easy for you. But there's a line of sight. You got to go through the open bracket. You got to go through pool play. You got to go through a championship bracket. You can do it. There's a way to do it. That's just Halo's roots. So we just were not going to compromise on that part of it. And we were able to find basically the line to walk. And, I think it was very successful because of that.
Yeah, you talk about the path to pro, and you've got things like the Open Series online. I think a big one for me and Eli, we're a little biased towards this, is Free For All Kids.
Yeah.
Dude, look at the last shot, who's my pick for Season 4 MVP. I know I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but where did last shot start, guys? In the free-for-all, on land, with the HCS. Talk us through the decision to maintain the free-for-all integrity and structure, and having guys like LVT Halo broadcast it in the grand finals. We partnered with you guys to make sure that has a spotlight on it, whereas it previously hadn't before. Talk us through that process and as it relates to path to pro.
Yeah, I mean, that's just always been a thing in Halo. And we just wanted to make sure that we retained it because, before people like Last Shot, originally you had people like Pistola or Strongside and all of these huge names. We had seen it before and we knew we had to retain that. So, I mean, we had the FFAs for Halo 2 Anniversary. We kept the FFAs for Halo 5. It's just always been part of a thing. We didn't want to get rid of it for Infinite, which we felt like competitively out of the box was just such a strong game. So, it has been easy because the FFA playlist in the game was sadly unpopular, but we wanted to make sure, for the HCS events at least, it was still there, and will still be there even in year 4, because like you said, it was just so important. It's do we get people like Last Shot if we don't have an FFA who's now one of the top pros?
Yeah,
you probably don't.
I think that's a discussion around all of FPS gaming right now. Solo queue, right? It almost makes it cringe a little bit. And the playlist data correlates, right? There's lower player population for solo playlist. I remember being thrilled for Last Spartan Standing. Little flex,
That's so fun.
grounded a top 10 global Last Spartan Standing player, but it got taken out, and I can understand it because there wasn't enough people playing. I know, because every time I joined into a lobby, it was like the top 20 people in every game. But talk us through the decisions to like launch playlist, keep playlist. I mean, how much of the data plays into what your gut's telling you, or is there a little bit of give and take with both?
It's definitely give and take with both. The community team and all the playlist teams and us on the rank side, like, we all pay attention to the conversations online. And sometimes they kind of line up with what we're seeing in terms of data, and sometimes they don't. It's just a matter of where we want to continue to kind of invest our resources in supporting the game. Something like Last Spartan Standing or FFA, it's like we can continue to try to make new maps and make big updates to the mode or do like huge marketing pushes. But it's like when you've already tried so many different things, it's like, is it really going to move the needle? Are people actually going to respond to it and like it? You have to make those hard decisions for some of these things to just remove them. One thing I like is, the team added the match composer, and now there's just so many different options for people to play, and they can play whatever they want, and they can play precisely one specific mode that they want. That lets us kind of have our cake and eat it too, where we can offer kind of unpopular things, but it doesn't really take away from, other experiences, which is really nice. It's never easy. And we're always trying to figure out like, hey, what's the either old school playlist to bring back, or kind of new gameplay experience to invent, essentially, to put in the game. And ultimately, our goals are to try to get as many people playing as possible and keep them playing and loving the game.
I think you guys have done a great job of that. Honestly, there seems to be something new to be done all the time in the different playlists. I do want to know, though, while we're talking about Last Spartan Standing, is there any discussion to get that added to the match composer? I think there's at least a handful of diehard fans, maybe just Makowski and all his buddies would be the only ones in there. But is there any talk about adding something like that back to the playlist?
Honestly, I don't know. That'd be up to a different team than my own. I legitimately don't know.
Fair enough.
Okay.
I even thought too, Tashi, it would be kind of cool to turn that into a duos playlist, right? Because as we talked about earlier, solo queue, it's just it's tough, man. It's tough to get anybody excited about solo queuing. But if you had your duo to be in that final circle, going back to back, wall to wall, I mean, I feel like that could be something exciting. So yeah, maybe drop that one with the Halo Studios crew and see if we can get Last Spartan Standing back. I think at this point we're kind of begging a little bit, but Eli, we'll move on to the next question.
Makowski loved him some Last Spartan Standing, that's for sure.
It's a great mode.
It was a great mode.
Bro, I'm telling you what, man, I know it was solo, but it was the first thing in Halo Infinite, outside of ranked, of course, that really brought me back to signing in when I was 15 years old, playing Halo 2, just like grinding through the rank, because I'd use the leaderboards to kind of see like where I stood, and there's that dopamine of like climbing through the ladder, and you're by yourself, so it's like you are your rank, right? So I was a big fan, so would love to see it back.
We've gone through a lot of the development stuff. We want to get into the roadmap. Obviously, everybody's talking about it right now. What are you most excited about in Season 4?
Honestly, Worlds. I'm always like super excited about Worlds.
You sit on the couch with us again?
Yeah, I'm down if you guys will be there. I think it always is just like the not only like the most hyped tournament, but also it's where the most people from around the community join us. So it's not just like our core competitive people, they come out in droves, obviously, but we get a lot of people who, typically don't come to our events, right? We have these cosplay contests, we have the community stage. It just feels like the one-stop shop for everyone in the Halo community. And it's just always exciting to come up with new ideas and try new things and experiment and see what people will react to. And so, Worlds has always been super special. I think, honestly, since like 2018, it's always been, at least for me, just like the most important, obviously, event. But yeah.
This might be a specific question just for me, but I was really sad because obviously I was busy casting the whole time, so I didn't get to actually go see the community stage and stuff. But you guys had Frank Tedesco, who I watch all of that guy's YouTube videos. Like seriously, he's one of my favorite content creators. How does a partnership like that come to be for something like Worlds?
I was a fan of Frank's content as well for a number of years. We were looking for basically some special guests to kind of fill the void that was left by the voice actors. There's that ongoing strike, which I obviously can't comment on, but it didn't allow them to come to the event. And we had always wanted to like incorporate music into Worlds somehow. You know, we had all these ideas around like an open ceremony and, you know, things like this. I don't know, it was just like one night randomly the idea popped in my head of like, oh, like what if we had a pianist on stage? I was like, oh, we could see if Frank Tedesco is interested because I know he's a Halo fan. He's a big gamer.
Wow.
He's like outrageously talented.
Did you just shoot him a DM or something?
I think so. Yeah.
That's sick.
Yeah, I think it was, I just like slid into his DMs and we're like, hey, we're hosting an event. Are you interested? What's your business email? What's your agent's email? Like, you know, let's talk. And we just had a meeting. We were able to like rent the exact piano that he has at home. He met with our audio team and one of our music supervisors who basically gave him like a huge list of songs. And then he just like practiced them on his own stream and started hyping people up and he killed it. Also just like one of the nicest guys I've ever met.
Yes, he really was.
He's like super humble. He was like grateful to be there. Yeah, it was just like awesome to work with. So yeah, Frank's great. I hope we can have him back in the future.
I see the keys behind you. Were you wrapping up a matchmaking W and the idea popped to mind? And you're like, hey, let's
maybe
whip that out.
Yeah, I'm nowhere near as good as Frank is, but I like to play sometimes.
Speaking of events, though, let's talk about the process of booking events. I imagine there's a budgeting process, and you got to be a bit strategic when it comes to shopping around for each venue. And it seemed like in season 2 with the Esports Stadium in Arlington, you guys started to actually partner with organizations themselves to kind of help, you know, pull that big beast of a rock across the mountain, if you will, and booking these events. Tell us a little bit more of what the behind the scenes process looks to making an event an event.
Yeah, for the teams involved, there's kind of two birds with one stone because obviously, you know, each year we need to run events and find partners to help us run events. And then the teams were also at the same time coming to us saying, hey, we've got these venues or we've got these capabilities to run events or we're interested. You know, they would approach us at the same time. And then we decided to like experiment and try it out. And now it's like the main way that we host events. You know, at first we'll put together based on our budget, like, what is the kind of roadmap that we want to go after? How many events? How far we want to space them out? Like we build kind of the roadmap on our end. And then we'll approach the teams and say, hey, are you guys available in this time frame? And then they'll say yes, or they'll say no. And then sometimes we have to move things around and say, hey, actually, I know you're available in this time slot, but can we ask you to do it here because another team is not available, you know, in their time slot and we need to switch things around. So we've had to do that a couple times. It's just months of kind of back and forth. And, you know, if there's not a venue that's already available, like the Optic one, then it's kind of getting a prioritized list of like what are the top cities that we want to go after, and then just doing like venue scouting and talking to venues and seeing what's available, negotiating on the prices, and finding operating partners as well and working on the budgets there. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of paperwork, honestly, and like back and forth conversations, negotiating. Yeah.
That's why I wanted to ask, because we have so much fun watching and being at the event and competing in side tournaments and casting and doing all that stuff. But it's a lot of not fun in the process to setting it up. But rearing it back to fun, DreamHack. I'm so excited for DreamHack because it'll be the first time in what feels like a decade where you have Call of Duty and Halo featured at the same tournament, which I remember, Eli, you remember, like the chance, like it's almost like the Call of Duty crowd and the Halo crowd are just trying to like outdo the other, and it just like adds it up this like electric energy that just bursts through the roof. Eli and I noticed one thing though. Dallas is noted as an open in big block lettering on the roadmap. Talk us about the dissertation between the three majors, and DreamHack being an open and why that is.
Yeah, the majors, in terms of like the branding, just come with a certain level of expectations that fans have. You're talking about 250K prize pool, the number of points on the line competitively, the specific format, like how many teams start in pool play, how many teams get travel coverage, all of those things. The DreamHack Open will be admittedly kind of smaller in scope compared to the majors. And so we had to basically give it a different name so that the ecosystem didn't look at that event and say, oh, it's a major. I know it's going to have this much prize pool and this many streams and all of these things. We're calling it the Open because we want people to know that it is open and you can compete. There will be a 4v4 kind of open and pro part of it. So I think it'll still be a really, important competitive tournament in the ecosystem. But it's just not going to be to the same level as a major.
That makes sense. It's harder for you guys to put your thumbprint or footprint on an event like that where there's 30 different competitions and conventions going on, since it'll be under the DreamHack roof. So I think that makes sense, and I think that everybody will appreciate that answer with some of the openness around just what that means with the difference. Because I know that was something Eli even brought up in the LBT stream was, oh, hold up. Well, actually, guys, the DreamHack looks like an open. What does that mean? So I'm glad we got the answer to that.
I was also curious, is there, what's the holdup for the Faze thing? I'm sure there's like some negotiations going down. Is there a reason we don't yet know where the Faze tournament's going to be?
Yeah, like you said, just some final negotiations, paperwork. We just didn't have everything kind of ready to go just yet. So, we want to, rather than like hastily announce something and maybe have it fall through or whatever, we just wanted to cross our T's, dot our I's, make sure we're ready to go. The event is, it's going to be early fall, as we've noted. If you look at the roadmap, you can probably guess which weekend it'll fall around there. And so we figured, there was still enough time for us to, get everything locked in before people are really going to start getting antsy about booking travel and things like that. So.
Makes sense. No, I feel like you guys have done a really good job of like adjusting and listening to feedback. Like, I know people are a little bit upset about the delay for the last Faze event. I think it was Atlanta. We didn't know like what venue it was going to be at until like pretty quickly before it, I guess, or like a minimal amount of time before us. But now I have to imagine you guys will announce it much sooner, as soon as you guys get all the ducks in a row. So I've always appreciated how much you guys listen to the community and make adjustments like that. This year is featuring plenty of new maps and even game modes, such as Assault. Can we expect this to be something that changes fluidly throughout the season? Are there maybe even more maps potentially entering the fray at some point this season, you think?
Yeah, we're looking for like an ASIM map to support Oddball. So the ranked team right now is doing a lot of play testing. I know a lot of the Forge Hub maps that went through the tournaments that the pros have been excited about. The guys are evaluating and looking at kind of as we speak.
Would this be a new ASIM map or a fan favorite from Halo 5 or Halo 3 or Halo 2?
I think the ones they're looking at right now are net new. But that doesn't mean it's just like guaranteed to get in.
Sure.
I think we want a new design. We feel like we've got the suite of remakes that we need. And I know players are looking for new designs, so that's what we're kind of going after.
I know the community wants to know, is this new or a redesign? Because we love our Halo remakes because they're all famous maps, but I think there's definitely an
Not
appetite
everybody
and a thirst for something
Yeah.
new. But you were talking about play testing. What does that look like? Do you have like the pro team? I know Clutch is a big part of that. We're big fans of Clutch. You guys have like scrims going on and like custom 8s taking place and they play on a closed server with each other. Like what's the testing process look like to where you can say this map is it? Let's bring it into ranked and the HCS.
Yeah, essentially the ranked team is comprised of members from the HCS team as well as the competitive insights team. And the competitive insights team is also known as the pro team, which Clutch kind of heads up. We'll kind of work together to figure out, what do we kind of need? And right now it's like, okay, we're looking for a new kind of ASIM map supporting oddball and those kind of ASIM modes. The guys will basically go scour the internet. They'll see what people are creating, on Forge Hub. They'll look in the content browser in the game. We have connections to a bunch of forgers, so we'll see what they're making. Yeah, they just like grind them out, 44 matches, or, a lot of times you can just kind of like walk around on a map and see, yeah, this is too big or this isn't going to work out. And then the ones that are kind of more promising will go to like the 4v4 like scrims. And basically the higher quality of a map, not in terms of like how it was put together or like the art aesthetic. And I'm talking in terms of like competitive, of like, hey, this thing can, last tournaments and be featured in tournaments and things like that. That's where it gets kind of a lot more playtime because the guys are trying to figure out what feedback they may or may not have for the, for the forger to help improve the map. Like, hey, everything's great except this one area needs, this wall needs to be blown up so players have a different route into here. Or, these doorways are maybe a little too narrow and it's a nade fest hell. And, so they'll just like play test the hell out of it as a team and come up with that kind of evaluation and feedback. And then, for the maps that are like, real contenders, then there's just a multi-month process kind of giving feedback to the forger, helping the art quality, get up to where it needs to be. And that's kind of the high level process.
Yeah, very cool. I know that Origin has been in QA and testing for like a year now or something. It's been going through the gauntlet, so it feels like they really wanted to make sure that was a good one before finally launching it. Can't wait to see that on Tuesday. Not sure at the time that this is going to drop, but it's going to be there for season 4, and I know a lot of people are excited for it. I was really excited for another map, though, Inquisitor, the Midship remake. I'm sure you were as well. It was launched into matchmaking, but I think only about a week later it was removed because of the performance issues on Xbox. Is this a map we will ever see rejoin the mix if they can solve the performance issues, or is it possible that maybe a different version of Midship could eventually join the party?
No, I think we're working on this one. This bug is just kind of pain in the butt. So, the teams are working on it. It's just not quite ready yet, unfortunately. But the idea is we want to, at the very least, put it into the Ranked Arena playlist again. Obviously, a good candidate for FFAs.
It's amazing for that, yeah.
Probably one of the biggest, issues I think we'd have since launch is like we don't have that like quintessential perfect like FFA map. We're just kind of like making do. So I think that would be a big win for that community. And then, we'll evaluate for 44 HCS if it makes sense to have that go in as well.
Glimmer of hope, Eli, for you and I to reunite on Midship.
I'm obviously biased.
Because your name is on the map? Is that what you're biased?
Yeah, he's biased. Typical bias caster, this guy. Back in Season 1, quite the stir occurred when the pizza jump on Streets was patched out of the game. But now seemingly every map has been updated to embrace skill jumps. What went into that decision?
Really, it was the competitive insights team who had just been kind of thinking about how we can improve all of these things. We, especially in the off season, we try to plan to work on whatever updates we can just so we have them in time for the kind of following HCS season. What we're trying to do is basically line up as many as we could, kind of big or small. Obviously watching and paying attention and playing. And so we'll kind of organically pick up things that, could be addressed or we want to address or players want us to address. We were just thinking about these kind of original maps, which we didn't have a ton of opportunity to like really change them in any major way. Like we couldn't move walls or things like that. Like we were basically limited to whatever we can do in Forge. You're limited in some ways, but what's nice about Forge is just way more accessible of a tool. Even people like myself could like get in Forge and do things. So Competitive Insights team just decided to take a crack at some stuff. And I think it was L-Town specifically who was working on these jumps. And, they just try some stuff out and, play test the hell out of them and see how it changes the experience and improves it. We just thought these were really nice ways to kind of freshen up these launch maps, because I think everyone kind of agrees that they're really good, but you also agree that it's just been the same map and same play experience for now 3 years. So these are, I think, a really kind of elegant way to, make at least areas of the map feel fresh and different, while addressing like some key gameplay problems. Because, like I mentioned on the stream on Friday, like the one on streets, if you're like, bottom B stairs there and there's a guy B rail, you're kind of screwed. You don't have a ton of options for how you want to push or get up there. And so now you've got this little jump to help you get up there. And now the player on B-Rail has got to be looking out for that. So it just changes the dynamic of those fights in really nice ways.
Yeah, I'm stoked. I know me and Eli got to be on our toes because we've been casting this game for 4 years now. So we're kind of used to seeing, oh, here we go. He's about to jump up the B-Rail, or he's about to walk up the rail or the steps, whatever it might be. Now there's that one option that turns into 2 or 3. So we won't know until we see it. And maybe even not even until then what the players decided. So really excited. Despite having the same map, I feel like with those skill jumps added to, it's gonna almost feel like the map is brand new. So I'm very excited about the skill jumps. I know a lot of the classic Halo fans love those ghost ledges and all the old jump montages from back in the day. I think that was a nice little tip of the cap to that.
Yeah, and it's a nice way to reset a little bit the mastery that's required for the game, because for the hardcore competitive players who like grind this every day, you just start to kind of get bored, but also it's like solved. And so if you're able to like change things up, you kind of reset it a little bit, so you start to see maybe a little bit increase in the skill ceiling, but you don't really have an impact on the skill floor for your kind of casual players or non-competitive or lower skilled players. So if you're like a gold player going into ranked arena, you might not even notice that these jumps are even there now, because you're just so focused on like, how do you shoot your gun?
Tools.
No comment. It's a way for us to change the game to impact like the higher skilled players without negatively impacting your lower skilled players.
Yeah.
So it's a nice little adjustment.
The one that sticks out the most to me in my head is the new P-side jump on Aquarius to get into the window. I think that's going to have like the greatest impact on the way the map flows, because it is very difficult if you spawn on that P-side, like in a Slayer especially, to do much of anything. But now with that new option there, it also got me thinking about Assault as well, because I feel like it's going to be a big thing for Assault. That's going to be a new entry point to get into the base with the bomb as well. So maybe, because I think Assault in its current form would just be people running up the shroom stairs, but it's like now they have another option to get into the base to allow for some creativity. So I think it's perfectly timed with the launch of Assault as well to add a jump like that. And I think on Forbidden, I know you and I did our little coaching session on Forbidden specifically, so hopefully you're doing better on that one. But the jump there is also going to be massively impactful, because when you get stuck down there in that little courtyard, like there's nowhere to go. But now you'll have a chance to like actually jump back up. So I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see that.
Last season, the pros took the Sandbox into their own hands, GAing seemingly everything. It caused quite the stir. It looks like y'all have addressed a lot of what their pain points were by reining in seemingly every weapon in the Sandbox, or at least fine-tuning even things like strafe and jiggle peeking. Is it the hope that in Season 4 there are no GAs and we get to play with the whole plethora of the Sandbox?
Yeah, I mean, that's always the hope. I think, I don't think anyone wants to see things GA'd. And I know the pros, they obviously want to play with everything. No one wants to have to like memorize what needs to be GA'd or, you just want to, if there's a gun on the map, you just want to play with it. We changed the rate of fire on the Bandit last year, slowed it down, which I think was an important change, but it had knock-on effects for all these other guns. And the pros just felt like it was a bit too much. And, we had talked about, okay, do we just want to remove these guns? But we said no, we want to keep them in there because probably the vast majority of players are still using these guns. They're not able to like abuse the shotgun in the same way that like someone like Legend is. So we decided to keep them in there for kind of the overall health of the game and not just like move things in a direction of like stripping things out of the sandbox. But at the same time, we understood like, okay, we're gonna have to do something if we want players to try to like reconsider, but also try to still find a good kind of balance for these things for all the players in the game, not just our pros. Yeah, I thought the team did a really good job just like finding the line between nerfing it a little bit for the high skilled players without completely sending it into oblivion for the lower skilled players. At least from Lucid's tweet, people are going to start just playing with them and seeing how it feels. And, hopefully they feel like, wanting to play with them instead of continuing to GA with them. But I don't know. It's a hard thing to know. And, sometimes not everyone's opinion gets heard. Players are not encouraged to like speak up. I've been in meetings where some pros are just like, hey, this is my opinion. And if you don't agree with it, then you're an idiot. And like other pros are like, oh, I don't want to be an idiot, so I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. Like, and you know what I mean? It's just like, some of that dynamic just kind of happens in the ecosystem. And so who knows? There are probably a bunch of pros that are like, actually, I thought the Bulldog was fine. And, they're just kind of like, oh, whatever. I'm just going to GA it anyway. I'm not going to, cause a stir. So we'll see what happens. I think the team did a great job balancing these things. So I'm excited for everyone to go play them, and hopefully the pros give them a chance, and hopefully they don't get GA'd.
Yeah, I think from Lucid's tweet, him saying like, I'm picking up all the guns. And it's like, all it really takes is for one team to say, I'm not GAing this. And then the GAs are all off, right? Like, why else would anybody else agree to it? And I really feel like a player like Lucid and like Trippy and most of that Optic squad were probably nerfed the most by the GAs. So after a full year of second places, I kind of feel like Lucid's just going to say, F it, I'm picking up whatever I want for the whole season.
He was arguably the best Heatwave player, right?
Yeah, like best Sandbox player, period.
And think about it, Season 1 MVP, still a great player in Season 2 and 3, but I agree, Eli. I think a lot of great players and great content and entertainment, you could argue great matches maybe even got nerfed with some of those GAs. So I know, Tashi, we're excited about the Sandbox updates and getting to see the whole plethora of the Sandbox and tools used by the pros who know how to use it best.
That point, there's no room for error. We're starting in the spot for Faze. It's looking scary. And oh my God! Yeah, baby! Is this supposed to be a close-range weapon, Gold Boy?
Nope. He's got himself a sniper rifle, Dave. Oh my word! And he also pockets the OS too. He doesn't care. He wants blood. He wants blood, and he wants it now. Two players in the mud down low. Oh, finally, his reign of terror is gonna come to an end. Looked like he was channeling his old name, the Saiyan back then. My boy was fragging.
Speaking of the Sandbox, are we going to see things like the fuel rod spanker and even that double barrel shotgun, which is slated for a summer release? That could really shake up the Sandbox. Are those two new weapons going to make their way into competitive, do you think?
We're not planning on that right now. I think right now those will stay in social, and maybe they're down the road they could come into competitive, but we feel like we've got a pretty good balance on all the maps right now, and we've got a lot of changes coming on Tuesday. Something we didn't talk about on the stream is some of the like items on the map have also changed across different maps. So there are a lot of changes. So I think we're at a point where we want to let things settle.
Items as in weapons or equipment?
Yeah, both. Just like different equipment on different maps, item changes, location changes, things like that.
Like Overshield is going to be camo on Aquarius. Yeah.
That'll be a huge facelift.
It's
Yeah.
all in the blog, I believe, though, right? Like you guys didn't talk about it on the stream, but it was in the, I think it was in the blog. Yeah.
Honestly, you'd have to go check. I didn't read that blog.
Okay. Yeah. We investigated a little bit.
Is there anything else from that stream that maybe that you're excited about that didn't get discussed or slipped through the cracks?
I don't think so. I mean, I feel like we touched on everything. I'm excited, I guess, mostly for the jiggle peak nerf with the strafe acceleration. That'll be a really nice change. So yeah, just changing up the fights, I think, is always interesting. The grenade cast time change, I think, is a really nice one. Yeah, I think if you combine all these things, once you launch the game on Tuesday, it's going to be like, oh crap, there's a lot of newness here.
In the blog, they actually had a little segment that was like comparing the grenade cast time across the different Halo titles. And when I was looking at it, I was like, you know what? When we just did this throwback Halo 2 tournament, I was thinking like, holy shit, it takes forever to throw two grenades. Like to throw a grenade in Halo 2, you are full committed to throwing a grenade and like you are going to die if you mess up at some point. So I think, it kind of adds a more risk to gunfights, which should allow for some more skill expression as well. So I like that too.
Yep. Hey fellas, I gotta run for the rest of my dad duties, so I'm gonna let Eli finish up the podcast. We just got one segment left, but Tashi, just wanted to thank you so much for coming on and giving us the time. And
absolutely,
I'll let you guys
Thanks,
rock
man.
and do your thing for the rest of the time. But Kills will put like a little dad duty up on my screen for the post production, so don't sweat it.
Later, dude.
And on that note, let's go on to our Patreon segment. So as you guys know, these episodes do require a lot of time, effort, and dedication from not just me, Makowski, and our guests, but also our editor, Killsinthenight. If you'd like to support our endeavor of bringing more Halo stories to light, consider joining the Patreon. Among other perks, members have the opportunity to submit potential questions for upcoming guests, and we've selected a few for Tashi. You ready for these, Tashi?
Let's do it.
All right, so we got a few questions from our very first Patreon supporter, The Dead Display. Thank you so much. He wants to know, following 2024 HCS season, were there any talks about reverting to BR starts?
I mean, it had come up, but not in a major or serious way. We just kind of acknowledged that there were a couple people who were looking at that, but generally our big focus was kind of on refinement. We had gone through 1 year with the Bandit Evo, and for now the second year with Bandit Evo, we wanted to make sure the sandbox around it was really well balanced and refined, and that we were adding in new content around it. So we were not really ever planning to kind of go back or heavily considering going back to the BR for the 2025 season.
I think that was a great solution. Instead of throwing it out, just kind of balancing everything around the Bandit was definitely the play.
Yeah.
Let's see. He says, is there any chance of the official Halo channels co-streaming future events with LVT or other Halo creators?
Co-streaming official events?
Yeah, because I think he's saying because now that co-streaming's a thing on Twitch, if the official Halo channel would do something like that with other Halo creators like LVT?
Potentially. I think we haven't really experimented with the new feature yet. Seems to be people using it all the time, at least in the Halo directory when I go and check. So there's no decision or principle I can think of that's been made or talked about where we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
We've already talked about it for the Kson event. The thing we also need to consider is when we turn on the Halo channel, there's an expectation for what fans are going to see.
Right.
And that's like content that's like produced by us. We get into kind of weird territory if we start kind of co-streaming content that is not produced by us, and especially where we don't have like complete control. So, we typically with big channels like that just err on the side of caution,
Makes sense. Got to be careful with moderation, all that stuff. And when you blend the chats with a channel that's not like monitored the same way, it's definitely tricky. This one is from our editor. Killsinthenight wants to know. He says, the reach of Halo seems to be receding to its geographical roots as the season 2025 roadmap shows no events further east than Dallas. With the Faze event still to be announced. Is HCS still exploring other event locations, or have we seen the last of events like HCS Columbus, Nashville, Europe, maybe even Australia? And is this trend signaling a more dire future?
No, I mean, we base where we go in terms of cities, again, based on where our partners are. And then always are trying to hit the big locations that fans are asking for. So I think the biggest one that we haven't really hit is like Northeast. So we've been kind of trying to see what's available there and see what's possible and what partners kind of line up. So there's not some like bigger thing that's going on to kind of force us on being like west of the Mississippi. So it's we're just trying to be where our partners are and where we can pull off good events, and then also cities where we know fans are asking for stuff.
I guess my follow-up to that question is about Europe and other regions. Do we think there's, I mean, maybe not for this HCS season, but do we feel like it's possible we could return to some of those regions in the future for HCS?
Potentially. Yeah, I mean, Halo's a very US heavy game, and so is our viewership and attendance. So I think unless that changes in a really big way, which hopefully it does, we want to be a big kind of international game and ecosystem, then I think we're going to keep kind of focusing on where we have strengths. We were in Europe last year, which was a successful event. We did have kind of less viewership than we were anticipating, but we also knew that it wasn't going to be as strong as, you know, just with time zones, it wasn't going to be as strong as a US heavy event. So we went into that, you know, we weren't like surprised. It was a super well attended event. We had way more kind of people there than we thought. Obviously the tournament was great. Sentiment was great. Quadrant did a great time, but you know, we don't have a quadrant or a European team part of the ecosystem this year. So, you know, we're not going to go to Faze and be like, hey, want to do an event in London? They're like,
right.
We're not based there. So we have hopes, we want to, but I think, you know, again, until like the makeup of our players and viewers changes to be more international, I think we're going to continue to just be where our fans are, you know?
Okay, we got a couple questions here from Licinity, big name in our community. Love her. She wants to know, number one, what Halo content creators do you watch?
What Halo content creators do I watch? Well, I definitely watch LVT and watch a bunch of the tournament coverage. So much love to the whole LVT crew. I watch a bunch of our pros. So I'll popped in recently like Frosty stream and Royal 2 stream. Popped into Snake Bites a little bit recently. I've been watching Last Shot a bunch. He's been streaming, posting on YouTube. So I've been just trying to like get to know him, I guess, a bit more, since he's kind of new and feel like I know most of the other pros. And then our grassroots folks, of course, you know, Oath and Ubernick and Trunks and folks like that. So yeah, I kind of make my way around, you know, in a night. If I'm watching for a while, I won't really hang on kind of one person. I'll pop in, say hi in one stream. I'll jump to another stream, say hi. And that's kind of how I approach it.
Awesome. Love that. She also wants to know, do you have a favorite LAN moment or memory from the 2024 HCS season?
Favorite LAN event or memory? I guess I got to go back to Worlds 2024. Yeah, I just always loved that event and just kind of like being in the mix. I think last one was also really special because we had the like BIDOC premiere and we had that special death segment on Sunday. You know, we had the Unreal Engine news and, you know, all of that stuff. And that was a lot of like work and stress that went into all of that stuff. So I was personally very pleased that everything went off great.
Yeah.
I used to love watching like E3 and all of these like big announcement moments live and then going back on YouTube and watching like the crowd reactions to all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember like watching the Halo 2 demo, or when I still remember when Halo 3's trailer went live at E3 and I was going to go to the movies with my friends, and I like literally called them in the house. I was like, you have to watch this Halo 3 trailer. So like those moments are always like very special to me. And like being able to host a moment like that at Worlds, which is the event, that, my team runs. And then we were also just heavily involved in creating that content and like how it all premiered. It was just cool to like be able to like give that to Halo fans, like what I felt like I had for the original like Halo E3 moments, Yeah. So I still go back and watch, like some people on YouTube have like, it's like a Halo A New Dawn Vidoc reaction. And I'm like watching people at Worlds film all of this stuff, and you hear the crowd go crazy.
Steps of making Halo games.
It's just nostalgic to me for like the old stuff that I used to watch, but it's cool to like be part of it this time,
I wonder if there's any footage from those of us watching it, because I know I can't remember who else was sitting with us.
Would you have Tony?
Might have been Tony, and then Bravo and Golden Boy, because their stage was like right next to ours.
First was released, and that's what Halo needs to be again.
Golden Boy starts losing his shit and starts like running over. He's like celebrating. He's like grabbing people and shaking them. Like, this is so big. This is amazing. Halo fans are eating tonight. Like, he was so happy and excited.
That's awesome.
And he came and like crouched down next to me. He's like, Eli, this is our moment. He's just like, love Golden Boy, man.
That's awesome.
We were definitely celebrating. You guys knocked that one out the park for sure. So,
Halo Infinite was the last remnants of how we made Halo games in the past. That was our recipe. And what we are doing right now, we're changing that recipe.
all right, we're going to shift gears a little bit here, going into our quick questions as we wind down the podcast here. We just talked about that memory, but across all Halo, what is your fondest Halo memory?
Across all Halo?
Yes, from the very beginning to now. Fondest Halo memory. It's probably hard to pick one.
How do I do this? Okay. It's just got to be something from Halo 2. It's hard to pinpoint the exact memory, but like just staying up all night, like grinding ranked. And I used to just run like FFA lobbies on midship all night long. Just play with my friends from high school, like after school. I know I'm giving kind of a cop-out answer, but I don't know that there's like a single Halo memory that really, stands out in that such a way. It's got to be just living it up in Halo 2 days,
Your Halo 2 memories sound really similar to mine being in high school. How old are you?
I just turned 37 in January.
37. Okay. I'm a little bit younger than you, but yeah, that was the same thing for me coming home from high school and playing Halo 2 until 2 a.m. Then going to school the next day, sleeping through my first class because I stayed up too late playing Halo 2 and then doing it all over again. So I can definitely relate to that. This is a tough one. I think Kills might have typed this one up here. He says, one of the following has to go. So you have to pick one of these.
Okay.
The player experience, player retention, adherence to tradition, and brand stability. Brand sustainability.
One of them has to go.
Yeah.
It was player experience.
Yeah.
Player retention, brand sustainability, and what was the third one?
Adherence to tradition.
If you kill the player experience, then you're like going to lose all the others.
Yeah. Right.
So that one you got to keep.
Yeah, of course.
And then like adherence to tradition, I think, however you interpret that, if we didn't adhere to a tradition, then, for example, like Halo 5 Pro League, like we did not adhere to a tradition, and then our brand got hit, our player experience suffered, you know what I mean? So it's like we lost a lot that way. There's a lot of things that we did not adhere to tradition, that I think were successful. Like we play on PCs for pro play. That's not adhering to tradition, but I think that was really important. Brand sustainability, I mean, that is also downstream from these things. So I'm going to say adhering to tradition, because I can loosely interpret that into ways that we didn't and were successful, even though I think there have been a lot of things that we have adhered to tradition, which have been successful. But I feel like the others are just like, you can't really not interpret those in ways that if you don't do them, then you lose everything.
Fair enough. That was a really tough one.
Is that okay answer?
I think you handled that really well, to be honest.
Okay.
So this is tapping into your competitive side. Who was the most difficult opponent you faced across all your competition?
You know, I still remember the first time matching against Ogre 2 in Halo 2 and Midship.
Man.
Halo 3, I matched against pros more often than like every other Halo game. Halo 3 and
everybody
Halo
was
Reach.
level 50, right? Like just the way the rank system worked. Like if you're level 50, you're playing against other level 50s. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember a couple things. I remember we matched, me and my friends. And like when I was like playing and competing, like I didn't like try to play with all the like the best people. I played with the people I like really like to play with. So I played with like 46s and 48s that were just like friends, you know? When I probably could have played with like if I were Cutthroat, I'd have been like, I'm not playing with you guys. I'm going to play with better people. You know what I mean? So I remember we matched against the entire Straight Rippin' team 3 times in a row.
Oh, man.
We got absolutely demolished, as you can imagine. One of them was a CTF on Pit. And I remember it got to the point where after the third game, I think it was Snipe Down that comes off mic in the post-game lobby. And he's just like, hey, can you guys just like not search for a minute so we can match against other people? And
that's messed up.
At the time, I was just like, hell no. Like, I just want to match against pros like all day. If I could like hit a button, even if I got my ass kicked, all I ever wanted to do is match against the best players in the game. So I think we ended up searching again right away, but we like didn't match up with them. But that was definitely the hardest. It was like, I mean, we had Geese on the team. Like, it was just like, you get one kill and you feel like you won. Yeah. And then I remember this one time, this was on Construct, King of the Hill, matched against Ogre 2, and I forgot who he was playing with, but I was close street, and he's in the bottom hill where I guess sniper spawns down there.
Yes. Yeah.
And he hits me with this like nasty ass strafe and forced me all the way from down there.
Oh,
and
no.
he would like strafe to the left, and then when I thought he was going to strafe back to the right, he like stopped and then strafed again to the left. And my brain just like couldn't handle that strafe, and I just got floored from down there. And I was like, "Holy crap, he's the real deal."
That's funny that it sticks out in your memory that much. You're just like, I have not experienced somebody that's that good before.
Yeah, seriously.
That makes sense. I've been competing forever. Like you said that you watched me back in the day, but I think the hardest person I've played against is Cycle in matchmaking in Halo Infinite. I can't kill the guy. I match against Lucid. I match against Royal 2. Like I can kill these guys. Not that like I'm as good as I could be, but
what's your CSR?
If I'm like trying like 1900, usually where I end up.
I need to get to that level, dude. I want to match against Cycle and Royal 2 and these guys. Like I want to so bad, dude. You have no idea. Like
we'll play some. I'll get you up there. We'll grind some into this next reset. We'll wrap these up here. What's a Halo hot take that might have you roasted over the coals on social media?
Okay, here's one. Next to Halo 2, I think Halo Infinite is the best competitive Halo that there has been.
Okay.
Especially if you look at like out the box.
Yeah. I kind of agree, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the other games have us beat on maps. You know, like Halo 3 maps, I think, out of the box. You talk about Narrows, Pit, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But for like gameplay, the feel, and like having the competitive playlist and ranks, if you look at like MLG V8 for like Halo 3, that is like a night and day experience from like
launch,
Team BRs or something like that. You know what I mean? And honestly, if I'm not being just like nostalgic about Halo 2, then I would say Infinite out of the box competitively is the best.
I don't think that's too far-fetched. I'm certain it would be a hot take, though. So
yeah,
that's a good one. What is your favorite weapon throughout every Halo title?
A Halo 2 battle rifle. And I got to play with it again at that Halo 2 LAN in November.
Yes.
I was...
that's right.
I was there just taking pictures. And I walk up and we're to the side stations to the left of the main stage, and I see just people like playing, and neighbors there, and Ritzy Pizza's there. And Ritzy is like, Tashi, you want to play? I got an extra controller. And I'm like, dude, can I? So I sat next to the neighbor, and we just played 2v2s against some random kids there for like an hour. And I was like so happy. It was just like amazing. And still to this day, Halo 2 battle rifle, man, it just feels so good to like nail a 4-shot, and you watch a Spartan like do a backflip. Like, man, it's the best.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure seeing you at that LAN was like the least stressed I've ever seen you. It's just like you're just like walking around with a smile on your face, holding a camera. You're like, I don't have to do anything. I'm just here taking pictures.
It was great. Need more of those in my life.
Right. Who was your favorite duo to team with in Halo?
I mean, it's got to be my cousin Sudi.
I had a feeling,
yeah. I mean, we've been like best friends since we were like 4 years old. So that's my brother right there.
Love that. Who was your favorite rival to compete against in Halo?
You know, actually, I remember Halo 2. I used to play a lot of midship FFAs, and we had Nighty Night was in the lobbies I played a lot with, and this guy Morbid, and this other guy Final Hunter, and there are probably a bunch of other names I just can't remember right now. But we used to just grind FFAs, and they were better than me. So, you know, if I were lucky, I would get like second or third. But we would just play all night, and those were like a lot of fun. And I liked playing with people better than me. I didn't like to be the best person in the lobby because it was just more exciting and challenging to me to like play against people who were better than me. So those were like a lot of fun, and those were, you know, we used to go play matchmaking together afterwards. So those were like friendly rivalries back then.
Love that. Good answer. We might have just answered this one, but what is your favorite Halo title?
Yeah, Halo 2.
Yeah, it's got to be, right?
Yeah, for sure. I had, I think, 15,000 matchmaking games played when it was all said and done.
I don't even know how many I had. It's probably off the charts as well. Probably close to that or more possibly.
Also, cool fun fact. In Halo 3 days, I made a video where I was just like beating the hell out of some kid. This is like Narrows. And he sent me a message on Xbox Live right after it. And he was like, you think you're good at the game? You're not good at the game. Every kill you got on me. Up there you were. Up there you were.
Don't even brag. 25-7. You know why you got 25 kills? Because I think every time I was one shot, up there you were. Up, yeah, because you're, okay, don't even talk shit, because you're not even fucking good. You got every fucking kill from cleaning up. You're fucking garbage. Killed me 9 times.
And he just sent me this message, and I remember I posted it. This is on the old NeoGAF forums, and there were a bunch of like Bungie developers there, and like, you know, everyone just like got a kick out of this video. And then I made a montage where I went to film in the theater, and every clip that I killed of this kid, I put his soundbite after I killed him. Oh, there you were.
Oh, there you were. Oh, there you were.
Oh, there you are. And it was just like, everyone, it had like 20,000 views. This is like 2008, you know what I mean?
Oh, there you were.
You know, in Halo 2, they had those little, like, did you know tooltips that appeared while you were matchmaking? Well, before Bungie shut down the servers, they did one final update to those did you knows with, like, you know, more modern or new kind of things. And they did a bunch of funny stuff, like...
The BXR was in there, right? BXR is cheating,
they commented on BXR. Yeah, they commented on, like, SMG starts. One of them is a reference to the video that I made. It's about trash talking. It says, oh, there you were. Yeah, you can probably go Google it and look it up. but one of them was like a reference to that video that I made. I have that saved on my work laptop somewhere, but that will, I've got that that's in like the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you can find anything like that to send to Kills, like he can edit it into the video as well.
I should be able to find it.
Up there you were. 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 Up there you were.
Well, this has been an absolute blast. Tashi, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Before we let you go, I wanted to ask you, or I guess just give you the chance to address anybody in the community. Is there anybody you want to thank or talk about?
Well, first, thank you guys for having me. I'm a fan of the podcast. I think you guys do an awesome job with it. And whenever it pops up on my YouTube, I'm glad to see that you guys have good viewership on these things. So thank you guys for doing it. Thanks for being so consistent. Great work on the editing. And yeah, just thank you guys for continuing to like archive these important conversations. So that's been great. And more broadly, just want to thank everyone for supporting HCS. You know, we just celebrated 10 years, like I said, and now we're on the 11th, and it's like really crazy to think that it's been going, you know, this long. I know when, you know, when I was younger and it was like so sad that MLG had dropped Halo. I remember being in those live streams with like Gandhi and Bravo and others, and everyone's kind of figure out like, hey, what are we going to do as a community? You know, like we didn't have the kind of big support. For me, it's like, kind of a personal mission to hopefully never have that competitive Halo community in that position again, where it's just the fans and the players and everyone's like, well, we got nobody. It's just us. And what are we going to do? I'm very thankful that, you know, we get to continue to do this and basically like host these events that are really important to this community and that it keeps kind of enduring. So that would not be possible without everyone who plays the game and watches the tournaments and comes to events. Thank you very much. Hopefully you guys don't take this for granted. You know, like I said, I think if you're an old head, you've been around for a while, you kind of remember those days where there was an MLG and, you know, the developer didn't really care too much. And, you know, that's not what there is today. But that doesn't mean it's just guaranteed and going to be here forever. So, you know, don't hesitate to support your favorite team, support your favorite pro player, you know, podcaster, whoever it might be, supporting the events. You know, those kind of help keep it going. So thank you, everybody who's just been keeping HCS going for so long.
Very beautifully said. Well, that will do it for this episode of Tied the Leader. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Check out the playlist link below for past and future episodes. And a final thank you to Tashi for taking the time and allowing us to dig a little deeper into the current roadmap and all things HCS. For Makowski, I am Eli the Ninja. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Oh, we're all coming here. We're getting this over to you. You know what I mean? My whole squad's here. Like, that's what's going through my head in moments like this.
You want to know what goes through my head in a situation like this? What the hell are we doing? There are so many other things on the map that we are concerned about right now. If the other team gets both snipers, we will lose. There are a lot of different things to be concerned with at the beginning. Our sniper, their sniper, the overshield, their flag, our flag. So many things that are being ignored that the other team will just get for free.